Despite its difficulties, organized labor is actually going to find a way to organize itself. It's what we call conservative unionism, and it was developed by what's known as the American Federation of Labor in 1886. Let's talk about it for just a little bit. The first president of the AFL was known as Samuel Gompers. He was from Holland, and he moved to the United States in the 1860s and was a skilled cigar maker. He believed that cigar makers should form up in an organization in order to make their conditions/situation better. So they formed a organization known as the Cigar Makers International. Then he became involved in the creation of the AFL, and he was its only president until he died in 1924. Now the AFL is still around. Now it's called the AFL-CIO, but it's still around. Now, when it came to his sympathy for the cigar maker plight, you have to consider how cigars were made back then. The cigar maker is paid by how many cigars they make, right? So they would, so basically that's a pretty boring job. So in order to get through the day, cigar makers would basically make an agreement, and they would all the cigars makers would roll their cigars except for one, and that one guy would be basically sitting in the front reading a newspaper out loud to them, right? So what they basically would do at the end of the day, they would divide their work based on some sort of agreement made. Another thing that happens when people get together is they begin to talk. So the guys who owned the cigar company would start to build and buy tenant buildings, basically apartments, and allow the cigar maker to live there as long as they did their work in their rooms by themselves. This is the thing that Gompers was against. So his approach is going to be what we call conservative unionism. What do I mean by conservative unionism? I meant that the approach to unionism is actually going to be a much more conservative way. It's going to preserve the status quo more often than not. For example, the AFL was a combination of trade unions. It was only interested in skilled workers. So which method is more conservative? Is it bringing in everybody that considers themselves a worker, or dealing only with the cream of the crop? Second, Gompers said that they accepted the capitalistic system. They're going to work within it. They're going to better their lot within the capitalistic system rather than go and try to change it into a socialistic system, right? So, which is more conservative? Staying within the existing system or throwing it all out and building up a new one? Finally, it did not become a political party. It did not endorse political parties. Instead, it would only endorse those candidates that supported their issues. So it's conservative because its membership was skilled. It was conservative because it accepted the system as it was, i.e. the capitalistic system. And it was conservative because it supported only candidates on particular issues, not outright political parties. The AFL starts out with about 150,000 people in 1886. By 1900, it's about 500,000. And by 1920, it has 4 million members. It succeeds in a sense that it built an organization that lasts. It did not succeed in terms of making a whole bunch of difference in what happened to labor. It only helped some during this period. The AFL preferred not to get involved in strikes, although there was a lot of industrial unrest during the Gilded Age.